Y'all, I'm hoping I have my A game for this video because I was looking for a certain novel to feature in this video and I could not find it and I was so devastated, and I'm like, I need to go through my collection. I'm gonna find this book. Hello friends, happy Wednesday. So very excited that you're here. So excited to be filming this video. Last week I had really wanted to film it, but I did a different top 5 Wednesday video because it was just a really rough mental day of the day that I wanted to, and before that in a much better place now, thankfully, and things are smoothing out, which is always a wonderful thing. So I feel like a big question that often gets asked in the community is what could be good manga to recommend to somebody who's not into manga or anime? Like sort of like what could be considered sort of like a gateway kind of manga. I had somebody ask me this, if I'd be willing to do a top 5 Wednesday prompt for it, and today, or video, excuse me, today here we are, that I am sharing 5 manga that I feel would be so good for those who may not be interested in manga or anime, but they want to get in, I guess for this video specifically, they want to get into manga. So I tried to think of things, or series, excuse me, when I was in the writing community and I was very heavily involved with a lot of fantasy writers. Originally, my top 5 was all fantasy. As you're going to probably see, I still have quite a bit of fantasy on this list. I tried to branch out a little bit, and so I also tried to pull some of the novels that I specifically owned that I felt would be really good as well to do like a comparison, though I haven't read any of these novels in an extremely long time, and so I'm not going to be able to tell you very well what those books are about, mainly just from genre and some things that I remembered from them, which is a little unfortunate because I was hoping to remember more. But I guess for number 1, I'm gonna say if you like portal fantasy, for example, the Unblemished trilogy from Sarah Ella. I love this series. I was rereading just a little bit of this morning. It's about a young woman who has this birthmark on her face, and she finds out that she is, I don't know if she's the daughter, but basically she finds out there is a mirror world, and I love the maps. I'm gonna show you the maps real fast. Don't worry, we're gonna talk about the manga, I promise, but the maps in this are the coolest thing. So on one side, on one map, you have a picture of New York. That's the map. On the other side is the reflection in this fantasy world. Oh, it's so good. This has a really good love triangle. I was very much Team Kai. Also, I do have a video review of volume 1, volume 2, but yeah, I'll leave a link here in the corner if you want to check it out. So if you like portal fantasy and you want something that blends the modernness or contemporariness of the world we live in with your fantasy, or with fantasy, excuse me, I'm going to be recommending In Another World, My Sister Stole My Name. This was one of my favorite manga last year, made it in my top 12 favorites from 2024, and I'm sort of choosing this for 2 different reasons. One is because our main girl, Ichika, actually goes through a mirror to get to a fantasy world. How cool is that? And I think that's honestly part of why I really was excited for this, because it had that element, and when I first discovered portal fantasy when I was reading novels, it was a total game changer. I loved it and was obsessed with it and wanted anything and everything I could find. But for this manga specifically, it's only 2 volumes and ongoing right now in English. I don't know how many volumes are in Japanese, but it's about our main girl. Her name is Ichika, and when she was younger, she was talking to this young man named Cecil through this mirror. She got to know him, and she would tell her older sister Karen all about Cecil and all about the things he would say. Well, one day when she's in high school, suddenly Karen goes missing. Her and her family cannot find her, and I don't remember exactly what led to the events, but Ichika goes to look at the mirror and she finds herself going through the mirror into this fantasy world, the exact fantasy world that Cecil had told her about. But there's a twist. Ichika's name has been stolen by her very sister, Karen. Karen claiming she is now Ichika and she is all these things. She was the one that talked to Cecil through the mirror, when obviously that could be further from the truth. So Ichika is in this new fantasy world with memories of when she was in Japan, modern day life, and she's trying to navigate her new time here here because this guy, what is his name? Oh my gosh, y'all, I can't remember what his name is. I want to say Noah, but that doesn't feel right to me. I feel like I'm thinking of another. Oh, it is Noah. I had it right. Okay. Also, man, I thought I was thinking of another manga, but anyway, yeah. And Noah here is Cecil's like brother. I think they're like half brothers, and Noah does not like Ichika at all. Yet here they are, keep getting roped in together into these certain adventures that happen in volume 2. I think it is such a great gateway, no pun intended, if you really enjoy portal fantasy. This series is engaging. It has what sort of appears to be a love triangle. There's not as much angst, I feel like, as was in the Unblemished trilogy that I featured, but it still has that connection there. So if you want the best of both worlds, I feel like this is a really good series. Plus, the characters are very compelling. The artwork is fantastic, and I really love how things are just not like they seem, because why does our girl supposedly not have any magical abilities, but then she has this really incredible moment involving magic near the end? That shouldn't be possible. So I love how it keeps you engaged from start to finish, and volume 2 was a very worthy sequel to volume 1. Just as engaging, just as juicy when it comes to the love triangle, which is something I'm not a fan of. Granted, I am Team Noah after reading volume 2, but I still like Cecil a lot. But there's just something so very compelling to this series. And again, I would ultimately say if you want some portal fantasy and you want it in manga form, this is your manga. For number 2, I don't have an exact comparison because I mainly read a lot of fantasy when I was reading novels, but I would say if you are a person that's looking for real world topics and themes, My Girlfriend's Child is one that I would highly recommend. I know there's other manga out there that are excellent. Like I was thinking of Embrace Your Size, which is like a nonfiction kind of manga. It's a one-shot, so not a series, but My Girlfriend's Child, when I think of something where you really want that grounding factor, where you're like, man, I see these problems represented today in society, even directly around me, and I want to read a story centering around that topic. Again, My Girlfriend's Child is it. It is about our main girl. Her name is Sachi, and this is her boyfriend Takara. They have an intimate moment, and to her surprise, well, to both of their surprise, but especially Sachi, she finds out she is pregnant, and she's got to make this decision. Is she going to keep her baby? And if she's going to keep her baby, what will her life look like? And if she's not going to keep her baby, what will her life look like? And she's got this huge decision presented to her, and she's got to decide what she's going to do, and if she should even involve her boyfriend Takara into the decision making, as well as her parents. Like, is this her decision, or is this like going to be a family decision? Like, she has a lot of questions being asked, and so this is her story and her choice that she's making concerning herself being newly pregnant. I knew somebody in high school that got pregnant, and I had a friend later on where she was in high school and I was in college where she also got pregnant. And so I was very curious about this series because I felt like it could open my eyes personally from somebody who has not been in that situation, and maybe as an outsider, what I could do. To be determined if it really does that. I do feel like it does open what the female lead Sachi's going through and what somebody else could be going through, and it's just such a compelling story. I mean, this is one of the very few series, every new volume I have read recently, for at least the past 3 to 4 volumes, I have cried or sobbed. And I've seen some very minor spoilers for volume 7, which I have not read yet, but it's on my TBR pile. Yeah, it seems like I'm gonna go through some extreme anger and some crying. So I guess choose your pick, especially if you, I would say too, if you're like, okay, real world topics, I find that interesting, something I might like to read, but you want emotionally gripping writing with emotionally compelling art, this one also is one that you should definitely read, because I think it was Colleen at Colleen Manga Rex, like her thumbnail that she made for this series, or for the, like she like a series review of sorts, or at least like a spotlight on it, she put cinematic on the thumbnail. And I really feel like often there will not be a lot of words on the page, and the art does the storytelling to you or for you. And it's very compelling when it's like that, because you can really see the expressions and the feelings of these characters just being shown to you without anybody even saying anything, without even the characters saying anything, and it just pulls at your heartstrings so fiercely. I don't know how much I can share in this without it being spoilers. I will say I felt that it did an amazing job of conveying those early stages of pregnancy, and whether you have a significant other in your life helping you and you've been expecting a child, that the fears and the questions and the worries are very accurately portrayed, in my opinion. Really enjoyed that just from that aspect alone. It is such a good series. I would just recommend it in general. But, you know, again, going back to why I chose it, of the real world topics, this is such a good one to try. And I think really shows how manga is not just feel-good stories, which you guys know that I've promoted many times. I love feel-good manga. I love when it's fluffy and it's happy and it makes you feel good. But I know not everybody prefers that. They prefer maybe something darker, something like My Girlfriend's Child that really raises awareness about a situation that you yourself may not even know about, or just curious about, or see, or want to see how a writer creator is going about it. Very, very good, and would highly recommend it. For number 3, though, we're going to talk about at least one thing that is fluffy, but the novel that inspired it is a one volume, and that is 100 Days of Sunlight by Abby Emmons. This book was so good. It has been so long since I've read it. I'm pretty confident I also have a video review of this series, at least I think I do. I know when I was doing like BookTube, I did feature it, and it was so compelling. And the reason I'm choosing this is because if you need a contemporary romance, but not necessarily a rom-com, because there's a lot of snark, and Abby has a really wonderful way of writing her characters that's deeply engaging and has some humor because of that snark. Sorry, I was rereading a little bit of it this morning, got my brain sidetracked there. But I would say if you're looking for something that's contemporary romance with disability rep, I would highly recommend A Sign of Affection. I have read every volume of this twice. It's about a young woman. Her name is Yuki, and she cannot hear. And she has hearing aids, but she is out here living her college life, goes to school. She meets this young man here. His name is Izumi. She meets him on the train because there is somebody trying to ask Yuki a question, and she's wanting to sign to them, but she doesn't know what they're saying. Izumi steps in and he helps this young man, and so begins their love story of them meeting, and it is such a beautiful and precious story. I know there has been a lot of talk on social media platforms about things concerning this series, but I deeply, deeply love it. As I said, I've read each volume twice, and I think it's just, even if it doesn't match the snark that's in 100 Days of Sunlight, the disability rap is really, really eye-opening. I mean, for, what's her name? Tessa? Yeah, and Tessa, she lost her eyesight for 100 days because she got into a car accident, and so she couldn't see, and her family hires this young man to sort of help her go throughout the day because she's very depressed, and so they're hiring Weston to bring some joy to her life in doing these activities because he's very, very different than Tessa is as a character. Very fun. And so it sort of reminds me of A Sign of Affection, though Yuki, I think she was born deaf, I think. Like, long as she has hearing aids, that though she can hear a little bit, but the whole emphasis, though, is on her using sign language and her having this love story, living out her life. Like I said, going to college, she even finds a job. And I found a lot of Tessa's struggles in Sunlight very similar to Yuki, though differently, because Weston and Tessa are teenagers and they're not moving in together. This is also set in college, so if you want a college-aged manga where they are adults, they just go to university, this is a really good one as well. But I found that their struggles concerning their disability at times, like not in the early volumes, but in one of the later volumes, Yuki shares her heart with Itsuomi because at that point in their relationship that they're wanting to move in together, and when she shares her heart and her fears and her worries, I cried. It was so heartfelt, and it was so hard to see these young men be on the other side of that conversation and see how brave and fierce these young women are and how they are going out there making these decisions, doing these things that people may say they shouldn't be able to do that, but yet they are making it a reality by doing these very things. It's very inspiring in that regards. I will say A Sign of Affection is a very fluffy, feel-good story. There's not a lot of drama, so if you're looking for a contemporary romance that's got more smooth sailing and beautiful art with really wonderful characters, oh, this is such a good one. It has actually been a hot minute since I have read any of these volumes. And we do have these creators. They are a duo mangaka. We do have their other works in English, or at least almost all of them. We have Shortcake Cake and Like a Butterfly. So if you read A Sign of Affection and you want to experience more of their work just because of the art or something else, you are set. But I specifically wanted to feature A Sign of Affection because I do feel this is one of the strongest contemporary romances that we have on the English market right now. Just the storytelling is very engaging and it's written very well, and the art, of course, is fantastic. And also that disability rep and seeing Yuki just thrive. I love her and I'm so proud of her, and it's just always inspiring to watch her grow as an individual and how she is just taking charge of her life. It's really, really amazing. So would highly recommend this one. And talking about it, I was like, dude, I need to go back and reread these volumes because I know we're getting volume 11, that it is coming out soon. And I'm like, I don't even remember what happened in volume 10. Also, if you do like having a side character, side couple kind of thing happening, that does take place in later volumes, and they are also equally great. There's also an anime of this as well. So if you'd rather try the anime and see what you think, this could be a great one to try and not just read. For number 4, the one that I was so incredibly devastated that I could not find volume 1. I found volume 2, but if you are into fantasy, well, what's inspired this, before I say my manga pick, is I wanted to feature the first volume is called Heleta, and it's by Sarah Delana White, and I love this series. Even though it's been several years since I have read volume 1, the ending still stands out vividly in my mind because I sobbed my heart out with King Talon, the king of the Fae, and having this mortal or this human alchemist and them just having this what seems impossible love story, making it work. Oh, it was so good. It is so good. I deeply love the series. It's part of why I was so devastated. I'm like, I have volume 2. Where is my volume 1? And I was rereading a lot of this actually, and I was like, I need to put some time aside and reread this novel because it's right chunky, but oh, it's so good. It's only 2 volumes, though I believe Sarah recently published a prequel. But I'm featuring this because fantasy. I'm using this to represent all fantasy, though fantasy specifically with Fae, though I have to give you an apology because the manga I'm featuring, I feel like it would be the perfect gateway from fantasy novels to fantasy manga. It's out of print, and so sometimes it can be hard to find, and I felt like that's a little bit unfair, but I was looking at other fantasy series I have, and I'm just like, nothing compares the same way this series does, and that is The Earl and the Fairy. In fact, I sort of felt like this was a very groundbreaking read for me, coming from novels to manga. It is about our main female lead. Her name is Lydia, and she is a fairy doctor. It means she can see these fairies, and people come to her wondering if it's a fairy that's causing a problem in their life, if they're having some kind of issue, and so that's what she does for a living. Well, Eggert here comes into her life very abruptly, aka by kidnapping her basically, and he claims that he is a descendant of this place where had Fae living. He wants to help him solve this mystery of where, I think it was a sword, yeah, the legendary sword of the Blue Knight Earl, and she ends up doing so. And while at the beginning it may not seem like it has these strong fantasy vibes, except for Lydia being able to talk to Fae and have a talking cat, it's the later portion, especially in volume 2, where you see the Fae. Oh my gosh, I should have had a list written down, because I feel like sometimes when we think of fantasy, we think of the typical dragon and unicorn. Nothing wrong with that. But when I read Rothana and Heleta, it went in deep to Fae creatures I had never heard of, Fae lore that I knew nothing about, and I felt like this manga delivered so well in that regard. What's the one? The mermaids. Is it Selkies? Is that what I'm thinking of? They had those Fae creatures in here, and I just feel like often maybe when you go into manga, especially fantasy manga, that you're going to see more Japanese folklore. A great example right here is Kakuryou Bed and Breakfast for Spirits. Wonderful series, but if you're not looking for something that has Japanese folklore and you want Western folklore, this series is it. I have had volumes 2 through 4 on back order on Crunchyroll. I don't think it's ever going to be fulfilled though, so I don't really know how hard it is to find this series used, but I truly, strongly believe there is no other fantasy series that hit the same when I was just so excited to see oh my goodness, these are the fantasy creatures I read about when I read novels, and that's not something I have been able to find with any other series that I've still read despite reading manga for several years now. And I don't mean that as a bash or a knock to other manga that only Japanese folklore, because I enjoy reading those. Kaguryou Bed Breakfast for Spirits is an obvious example, but there's something so special for this series. And I will say even though the manga is only 4 volumes, it's out of print. The light novels are available in English digitally from J Novel Club, so that is an option if you want to read further ahead. Because while this series is very good on its own, you can definitely tell when you get to the end of volume 4 that there's totally more to the story than where it just ended here. So it's like semi-satisfying. It's satisfying in the sense of like, yes, you got the closure for what was happening and the mystery that's unfolding or had been unfolding, but then, you know, you're like, well, I sort of want more. It's obvious they're about to go on more adventures and solve more mysteries and all these things. So that is at least a little brighter note. But man, this series is so good. I have a video review. In fact, the other day, I think it was last week, I was looking to see like, man, maybe I should just go ahead and try and get the rest of the series, because even though I've only had volume 1 and it's been over a year or two, I think I did, since I did the actual video review of this series, I just can't let this series go or this volume go, just because of how engaging it was. The mystery and aggravating, where you're like, is this guy a good guy or a bad guy? Because he totally just took somebody out at a warehouse or some sketchy place, and it's like, you really, and then he kidnaps Lydia, so you really don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy, but it's part of his character, and he does have some development and growth in these four volumes. I just can't recommend this enough if you're coming from fantasy. I mean, Rothana is a very unique fantasy series that I've read, and there hasn't been anything quite like that I've even read for this series alone. I guess you would more categorize it as epic fantasy maybe, but not with your typical dragons and whatnot. They're star fae, and I don't know if I've read anything with star fae, but they're the coolest fae that I've ever read about. And then there's things with dreams. Like, please go read that series. It is incredible. I love it so much, and I'm deeply due for a reread. But yeah, if you need fantasy manga, The Earl and the Fairy is one I would highly recommend. For number 5, I really wanted something science fiction on this list, despite that I really don't read a lot of science fiction, but the one I have read that was so good is by my friend Kathy, and that is Recorder. Shame on me, I have volume 2, I haven't read it yet. I got my grandma hooked on this series, and it is a very engaging science fiction where it has, I was gonna say spaceships, it does, but that's not the reason I chose it. I felt like, oh man, I didn't think this pick quite as well as I did. I felt like my other ones. I would just say, because it'll be less confusing if I don't go in deep about Recorder, even though it's really good and you should totally read it. I was thinking about, for science fiction, I would recommend Your Forma. I do feel like Your Forma is different than Recorder, even though I had the best of intentions, but the reason I chose it is because both of these female leads are tasked with, Recorder is tasked with verifying records, while our female lead in Your Forma is tasked with going to investigate people's memories, as you would say, through this Your Forma, which they explain it as being a small thread that's installed directly into the brain that records all its users' sensories, perceptions, and emotions. So I thought of like science fiction in that regard, where it's coming more towards like science than set in the galaxy or set in space. The Recorder does take place in space, and it does have giant roaches. Yes, they were pretty terrifying, not gonna lie on that. But anyway, I wanted to feature Your Forma because it's the only science fiction manga I have, and I really wanted it to be represented because I do have friends that do enjoy the genre a lot, like not just for manga, but I would say novels as well. And so as I was saying, it's about our female lead here. She is an investigator who uses this Your Forma to look into these memories of these people to help solve these investigations of different crimes or murders that have happened. It is so engaging, and the manga does 10 times better explaining what exactly Your Forma is. I'm sorry, I'm floundering, and there's a lot of, I feel like science fiction does a really good job of asking questions, of presenting things, presenting situations to you, the reader, and having you ask questions. Is this ethically right? Is this morally wrong? Why makes it ethically right or morally wrong? Like, what are your personal perceptions on that and your ideas and your beliefs? That is a very good example for Your Forma, where there is sort of like these androids of sorts, and our main female girl is like, no, I want nothing to do with them. But then she gets a partner that is one, and his name's Harold, and he is absolutely amazing. I love him. He's fantastic. But when in volume 2, we see more of it explored of why she doesn't like them, what makes him different than a human being simply because he doesn't have a beating heart, and why are his emotions not as valid as a human's emotions. Very, very good. So I feel like if you like something where you're having to see these characters solve crimes, yes, but see that moral dilemma because our female lead is struggling so hard with that, and my heart just broke for when we get her backstory, then I would highly, highly recommend Your Forma. It has been such a pleasant surprise to me, and it reminds me of Recorder, where I typically don't read science fiction, but there's just those times that I do them like, man, this is good, this is compelling, and Your Forma is not so big brain that like I couldn't understand anything that was happening, since I don't typically read the genre a lot. Again, if you're wanting the spaceships though, you're not gonna find any spaceships here in Your Forma, I'm sorry. Though Sazin and Comic Girl, that would be a good one if you do want spaceships. But we're talking about Your Forma, not that one. So yeah, I feel like if you're just wanting those deeper questions that make you think maybe you want it in a modern sort of like setting, but it's more advanced because of how they're going about these investigations. It's not just as simple as, well, we have this fingerprint, let's see if we can solve this crime. Like, there's so much more available now for them to really look into these crimes, and there's other things that are happening where the crimes are a lot different than, you know, just say robbing a bank or something like that. That's a not very good example. But I'm really excited for volume 3. It is unfortunately only going to be a 3-volume manga series, but this does have light novels available as well if you're wanting to read more or get more in depth into these characters. And that, my friends, are my top 5 picks that I would give based off of genre, based off of things that I've read and I liked, or people that I knew in my life that I feel like would be great gateways into manga based off of these other demos and series. But I would love to hear from you, friends. What do you feel like would be some really good gateway manga for people who may not read manga at all but have been really interested in it? Let me know down below, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!